What's up, YouTube? Back for part two of using military planning models to plan for stages. And again, I got my nerd shirt on today because this is some pretty nerdy stuff at the end of the day. So, last video we talked about METT, but we left out the terrain or the T because there's some sub acronyms we use for that. And so it's probably another 15, 20 minutes here going through those. First thing I'm going to do is talk through the weather acronym. So now in military planning, I'll do the weather acronym first because it's kind of, you do that with task work, all kinds of stuff. But uh, like I said, when I grew up, I used West Virginia TCP, W for winds. If you're shooting USPSA, everything's inside of 20, 50 yards. You're probably not worried too much about wind, except for its effect on you. Is it going to be super windy, super dry? Do you need sunscreen? Do you need something on your face to keep you from getting windburn, chapstick, stuff like that? Hey, be comfortable. If you're comfortable, you feel good. You look good, you feel good, you shoot good, right? Visibility. Visibility, you might think about just like we talk about in the Army, we talk about how far you can see, like what's the ceiling, stuff like that. The other piece to that though is light data. So if you go back and look at PCSL, for example, the PCSL nationals that just happened, they had a low sun line the entire time, so they were looking into the sun quite a bit. And then when the rounds impacted the dirt berms, it kicked dust up, so they were losing visibility on targets. So that is something to consider when you're talking about visibility. The other thing to talk about with visibility is a lot of those guys were shooting occluded dots. So when they were leaning around something and they're shooting right-handed and their right eye is occluded and their left eye is looking at a barrel or a wall or something, or obviously you lost visibility. So a little bit of consideration on visibility there. Temperatures, temperatures are temperatures. What I would say on this, if you're going to a level 2 or higher match, there's almost always going to be water or something like that on the stages. With your level 1 matches, I always take water, unless I know 100% for sure. Even the matches that almost always have it, every once in a while somebody, match director says, oh, I forgot to go, I ran out of time, life happened. Always, always, always take at least some water with you. I like to throw a Snickers bar or something in a cooler too, just so I have something to eat, so I don't get too hangry. Cloud cover. Cloud cover kind of matters, kind of doesn't. It matters more with dot washout, things like that. If you're shooting early morning, late at night, going back to visibility. Cloud cover is going to matter a little bit more like that with that. If you're shooting something like PRS, it might matter a little more. Cloud cover is not super applicable in our sport, but it could be when it comes to visibility. And last thing is precipitation. Is it going to rain? Do you have the right rain gear with you? A lot of people just have their rain gear in their packing list in the trunk of their car or the backseat of their truck all the time. But the other piece to that is precipitation over time. So what's my footing going to be? What kind of range for am I shooting on, which we'll get into here in a little bit. And then what is the range for going to be? Is it going to be slick? Am I going to be dropping mags in puddles? I need to be able to dry my mags off as well as brush them out, stuff like that. So that's the real quick MET data analysis that you should do. And again, kind of common sense, but I've been caught on the range before without rain gear. I'm sure other people have. It's always good to think through it. All right, so talking terrain analysis now. The modern acronym is OCOC, and if you want to be naughty, you say OAKOC, and then you snicker because you just said wiener, but you're using military words. But anyways, what I grew up on actually was OCOKA, and I like OCOKA better because it puts them in, I think, a better order. I think it drives a better order. So in OCOKA, we start with observation, and we talked about this in the last video about number one is where can I see every target from, and have I identified every target? So that's both is the way I would do it for shooting. Observation in military is like, am I shooting in the woodline? Am I in a woodline where I can see a little bit? Am I in the desert where I can see far? That's how we talk observation there. I think in shooting, observation is where can I see targets from, and have I identified every target? And where can I see targets from is going to be key later on. There are going to be targets that you can only see for a very brief window in a spot that you would normally be moving. And there's going to be targets that you can see from 4 or 5 different positions that you might waste time on shooting multiple times. So understanding where you can and cannot see targets from is the number one thing. Number 2 is cover and concealment. And for cover and concealment, for most shooting sports, it's going to be target focused. The one caveat that I know of to that is IDPA. IDPA, you have to shoot from behind cover. I think I've never shot IDPA, so I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but understanding what is and isn't cover for you in IDPA matters, and then concealment is you shoot from concealment there. You can shoot from concealment in USPSA, but not everybody does. Sorry, my microphone's doing weird stuff. Hopefully this is actually recording. But we talk about concealment with targets. We're talking about hard cover and no shoots. So hard cover in a lot of shooting sports is black. No shoots can be different colors. They can be red, they can be white, kind of depends on the sport you're shooting. But understanding hard cover and understanding no shoot. Hard cover is hard cover. If you shoot a bullet through hard cover, the range officers are trained to identify that even though it might go through a wall or a barrel or something to hit the target, if you might be missing a grease ring, it might have turned the bullet and it's gone through at an angle, so you're not going to get a count for that hit. You don't get count for hits for shooting through things. In the games, once it hits hard cover, it has stopped. The other thing in hard cover, and we'll put some targets up here. Hard covers, you might have a tuxedo target. If I put them around in the black, even though there's a whole target, it's not going to get a count. I'm going to get a miss for it. So understanding your hard cover. The other thing on cover and concealment, high and low ports, right? Can I see the targets through the high and low ports? And what is there a door I have to open? Sometimes there's some funky stuff with ports, but you should consider high and low ports in your cover and concealment. I'm 6'5". Low ports are a pain in the butt for me. There are some sports, where guys are around 5 foot, where sometimes shooting over something is difficult for them. So understanding that. Understand walls in your game. So in USPSA, the standard wall height is 6 foot, but walls are considered infinitely tall and go all the way to the ground unless otherwise stated in the stage brief. I'm 6'5", so I can see over most walls. That doesn't mean I'm allowed to shoot over them. And if I come across if I go to a new facility that I've never been to before, and they've got 5.5 foot walls, and I can tell they're lower, I usually go ahead and ask the question, hey, is this standard wall height? Are these infinite walls, or is this low on purpose? All right, just get it out of the way ahead of time, but understand that about the stage. Sometimes they will have a 4 foot wall or a 5 foot wall that if you're tall enough, you can shoot over it. Barrels and banners. Barrels and banners are almost always on the stage for a purpose. Barrels specifically, there's almost always something behind a barrel. Only the truly devious match directors will put barrels out there for no reason. And why do I say truly devious? Because it requires time and energy to drag barrels out from wherever they are, paint them up, all that stuff. Banners for the same reason. A lot of times you'll have banners on the left and right of ports or around so that you can't look through the mesh wall and identify targets as you're coming around it. In all shooting sports that I know of, when they have these walls that you can kind of see through, well, you can see through them so the wind doesn't knock them down, so stage construction is easier and they don't get torn apart. That does not mean you can shoot through them. So understand the sport you're playing, understand what you can and can't shoot through, and understand when you are and are not going to be able to see targets. Sometimes if you go to a major and you're walking stages on Thursday and the match is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there might still be putting banners up, so you might walk a stage, be figuring out sight lines, and you come back during the match, and all of a sudden there's a banner there where there wasn't one before because the staff hadn't got to it. Last thing on cover and concealment, foliage matters, specifically with rifle sports. So you might be standing there looking at a target and think, cool, I can see it, and this is real life too. You say, but I'm going to go prone here and shoot that because it's the end, I don't have to get up. And then when you go prone, either there's a slight rise in the dirt or you've got 8 inches of grass between you and the target. And once you go prone, you can no longer identify the target. That is a concealment type of thing. So understand if you're allowed to in your sport, go ahead and get in those actual firing shooting positions and make sure you can still identify your targets. Obstacles. All right. So we've got observation, we got cover concealment, now obstacles. Obstacles are a little bit different. I would say similar to military planning, obstacles are either natural or man-made. Natural terrain matches are a thing and they're a lot of fun, and I would like to see them more in standard USPSA and get out of the bays a little bit. But understand, sometimes you have natural obstacles on natural terrain courses, and sometimes you'll have man-made obstacles on your stages. Your shooting surface may be an obstacle. Are you in loose gravel? Are you on red clay that's got rain on it, so it's going to be slick? Are you in sand that is going to give a little more, but you might You might pile up against a fault line. You might not feel the fault line as good with your foot. All right, so understand the obstacles that are on the course, understand what you do and don't have to go around, and then understand that just generally the shooting surface. Along with obstacles, you might have doors, you might have ports, and we talked heights of ports already, right? Those are obstacles. For whatever reason, breaching has become cool in 3-gun, and I absolutely hate it because it's not breaching. You're supposed to like stand 6 feet back and shoot it with birdshot, which is not how you breach a door. That's my breaching tangent. I think it's dumb. But even in USPSA, sometimes you'll have to pull open a door, push open a door, whatever, without flagging your own hand. And then, like I said, there's ports. Some of them have drop doors that might activate an activator on the other side. Some of them are just ports that make you get high or get low, or make you kind of go at an angle and decide what to shoot from. Ports are ports. It's just another challenge to make you shoot through a specific shooting position. The other thing is as you progress through the shooting sports and you go to larger major matches, you might find things like boats and bridges and stairs, which I'll put some videos of in here. All those things are fun, and they're things that you're not going to have on your match when you go out to practice on a Saturday at your local range, right? These are things people like in major matches. I kind of call them circusy, but people like them in major matches because it adds another challenge. If you go shoot Memorial 3-gun, you might shoot from the back of a moving trailer or something, which is an obstacle that you kind of have to overcome, and it's not something you can practice for. But understand your obstacles. All right, so now that we understand where we can see all of our targets from, we understand how we need to shoot. Some of those targets are hard to shoot because they've got hard cover or no shoots around them. And we've got some obstacles that we've got to deal with throughout the shooting area. Now we can start to identify what we call key terrain. In military speak, key terrain is a piece of terrain that provides a marked advantage to the person that's standing on it. What I call key terrain in the shooting sports is terrain I absolutely have to go to. When I'm going through and I'm identifying my targets, there are going to be targets that I can only see from a specific spot. Right, that is a piece of key terrain. There are going to be pieces of key terrain where I can see a bunch of targets, right? And I can stand there and I can build a great base and I can just sit there and hammer down and transition and shoot a lot really fast. That's a piece of key terrain, right? It's a dominant position inside the shooting area that allows you to get the maximum amount of points in the shortest amount of time. Or it's the only spot you can go to get those points, right? If that makes sense. All right. Other things. Start position. Where do I have to start from? That is a piece of key terrain. It's not key in a military sense, but in the shooting sports, it is absolutely vital that you understand where you start from and what your starting position is. All right, so once I understand all that, the last piece to the puzzle before I start to build my stage plan of where I'm going to move through are my avenues of approach. All right. Avenues of approach are going to vary by game, but basically it's the shooting area you're allowed to shoot from, what you'll often hear called fault lines. In USPSA sports, if the fault line is, commonly it's a 2x2 piece of wood that's painted orange or red or something, and it's, staked into the ground, you've got to be standing inside that to engage targets. If you're standing outside it, you're going to get some kind of a procedural penalty. However, in USPSA sports, you can move outside of it and into another part. You don't have to stay in it the whole time. If you're shooting IPSC, which is the International Parent Organization of USPSA, you're never allowed to leave the shooting area. And if you step outside of it for any reason, you get a penalty. Other things I encountered in the last year I didn't know about was raised fault lines. So in the shotgun, even though we were shooting under USPSA rules, but to give it the IPSC feel, they built a raised fault line. So they put a piece of rope a foot off the ground. That has the same rules. Becomes a fault line you're not allowed to leave. If you're shooting something like PRS, there are no shooting areas, at least the places I've been. There are places you want to be. There's a start position, stuff like that, but there aren't any fault lines that if you step over this and shoot something you're going to get in trouble. And really what you're looking at there with that is when can I engage targets and when can I not engage targets? When I cannot engage targets, what else can I be doing? All right, those are good spots for reloads if you're playing a game where there are reloads. All right, so those, again, avenues of approach. Where can I walk? Where that I'm walking, can I see things? Or can I not see things, and do I want to do a reload here? Or transition guns if you're playing 3 guns. We talked about in and out of fault lines. A lot of times when you walk up to a stage, especially if you're a later squad, or if it's a major match and the staff's already shot it, you'll start to see goat trails outside the fault lines where some people are going. Sometimes that's what you want to do. Sometimes it's not what you want to do. It just depends on you and your skill level. The last thing I will talk to you about on avenues of approach is, are you right-handed or left-handed? Right? So if you're right-handed, you typically would like to move from left to right, from back to front on the stage, because that's moving left to right, you're less likely to have a 180 issue, and it's easier to reload on the move. And then back to front, we're predators, our eyes are in the front, we move forward very fast. We're not as fast at moving backwards as human beings. Lefties are going to want to move right to left, same reasons, right? It's because it's easier for them to reload, and it brings in the 180 less into the game less. Now, if you're going to play this game and keep playing it, you need to be able to do all the above. You need to be able to move left to right, right to left, forward to back, back to front, hit them all, and you need to be able to reload in all those directions. But that's when you start thinking, okay, if I do moving back, am I moving right shoulder back first? Am I moving left shoulder back first? If I'm right-handed and moving left shoulder, what am I doing? Am I dragging the gun? Am I pointing it? What am I doing? I obviously can't reload if I'm doing that. If I'm moving right shoulder up, that means I can reload, but maybe I'm not moving as fast because I can't fully turn my hips all the way up the stage and run, right? But once you've considered all that, that's, in theory, that's what's going to give you your stage plan. I have to start here. From here, I have to get to there. What can I shoot from here to there? Cool. Okay, I can do that. From there, I need to go over here. I need to go over here because it's my natural point. Once I get, can I see targets all the way from here to there? Nope. Well, I just expended 14 rounds already, so I probably want to go ahead and do a reload. All right. And then from there, I need to get to this last point position where I can only see these last couple little targets down here. That is the thought process you have to go through during stage construction and stage build. Now, this is going to be a 20-minute video by the time it's all done. All right, so that's 40 minutes of video on stage prep. Do you have 40 minutes to plan this? Absolutely not. When we teach this stuff in the Army, we teach all the steps, all right, so that as you progress and as you learn and as you begin to build SOPs, you can figure out where you can develop SOPs. Where you can start to take shortcuts and where you can just figure stuff out as you go. And as you build stage plans, you'll do that. The one caveat to that is going to be major matches, specifically I think even the pistol major matches you can get out early usually and walk stages. 3-gun is one you've almost absolutely got to get out early and walk stages because they are so big and are so complex. I didn't talk this in the beginning, but I have become a fan of taking, once I've walked the stage and kind of figured everything out, I take my camera out and I'll talk myself through the stage. And then when I go back to the hotel or home or wherever that night, I'll walk through it and I'll watch the videos over and over again, and I'm building my stage plan. Don't change your stage plan. Once you've got it built, you're going to see a better shooter than you do something. They probably have a skill you don't have. You built the stage plan for your level of skill with shooting. Execute your stage plan. And if at the end of the day you're like, man, I could have done what that dude or dudette did and done it because I just didn't see something they saw, cool. Put that in the bank. Use it for next time. Stage planning is an art. It is a thing, and you'll get there over time. Okay, a lot of talking over these 2 videos. I got some work to do to go back and splice in some videos, but hopefully this helps. Hopefully it gives you a way. And I'm certainly not the first one to do this. There's tons of top-level shooters that have videos out there, but that's how their brain works. This is a system that you can start and you can write down and you can kind of think through. And then as you learn to stage plan, you can start to make it your own and develop your own system. Your brain doesn't work. My brain doesn't work the way any other top shooter's brain works. Theirs don't always work the same, but yet we all get to the same conclusion. All right, a system like this will help you get to that conclusion sooner in your shooting career than going out there and trying to figure it out on your own. All right, that's all I've got for today. Have a good one, YouTube. Survive the snowpocalypse. Bye.